And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's Tom, Erica, and Josh. We have a great show prepared for you today. We're going to be talking about a brief history of the United States relationship with the Vatican and maybe some predictions as to how Pope Leo approaches the American church as JD Vance heads over there to go to the inaugural mass. Marco Rubio will be there too. But before we get into that, claps for producer Rosie. She graduated college.
Rosie.
Only took her 6 years. Good girl. Oh, that's a joke. That's a joke.
Rosie, congrats. You graduated from Ave Maria University, Bachelor of Arts, and will soon be off. We weren't able to convince her to stay somehow. She's going to study master's in English at Oxford, which feels like the most appropriate possible place to go do that.
Especially for a Loopcast assistant producer. That's where they all end up, is Oxford, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oxford, Michigan.
Yeah, Oxford, Michigan. Likely, man. That's where
Definitely.
But yes, and then we'll also be at the Courage Under Fire Gala next week. We're going to be live streaming on Friday. And right now we have Father Mike Schmitz and Michael Knowles slated for that live show. Very excited to talk to both of them. Maybe send us some questions that you'd like us to ask them. I've actually never met either of them in person, so it'll be my first time. I don't know if you guys are friends with more famous people than I, but I feel...
My daughter met Michael Knowles last year as part of a Hillsdale College trip, and he was at an event, and her one comment was, yeah, he's a short king. So I think you're going to just feel so seen. Like,
or we'll have to get a picture together. We'll have to get a side-to-side picture together. See, you guys will all see height reveal for Pogo.
That's right. That's right.
Next to Mike.
Great. I want a side-by-side with Harrison Butker, who I also understand will be at the gala
tall
later
king
on that day.
He is tall.
Yeah, very tall king.
NFL.
Yeah, which hilarious. I saw the pictures that Josh took from Rome, or I think Kelsey here, who is also a tall queen. And it was just like the most downward angle picture possible on someone. I was like, is this how other people see the world?
They
like
see
POV of being over 6 feet and you're just looking at midgets walking around. That's where I'm at, guys.
That's like what it was like when I lived in New Haven. I felt like we're all
the short, angry people. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So if I ever get angry on this show, just someone Photoshop like a Napoleon hat on me or something. I believe we were the same height. So you guys can Google and find that one out. But as we get into the full show here today, so I saw yesterday announced that JD Vance will be joining Pope Leo for his inaugural mass. Funny, I saw during the announcement they said installation mass. Yes, thank you for the correction. But the announcement from the Trump admin said Pope Leo the 14th is the first American pope. Vice President Vance is the first Catholic convert to serve as the vice president. I actually read that as the first Catholic to serve as vice president, as maybe a dig to the previous one. But honestly, that got me thinking, and I made a little bit of a video on this. There's a lot of connections actually between JD Vance and Pope Leo in terms of their hometowns being about 4.5 hours apart, but also their spirituality as well. JD Vance credits St. Augustine as his patron, and I believe his confirmation saint when he was entered into the church in 2020. And then Pope Leo, of course, Augustinian, led the Augustinian order at one point. And then in his papal crest has an Augustinian quote. So I'm really curious how this is all going to go. I think it'd be worth going back on the previous relationship, kind of where we are. Of course, Brian, our boss, is going to be going over there, potentially a part of the new relationship. So it all started for me, and Josh, maybe you can add color, but with the Ordo Amoris spat was where I saw things really start off with the Trump administration. So here's that clip again for those who haven't seen.
It's old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country. And then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society. And I think the profound difference that Donald Trump brings to the leadership of this country is the simple concept, America first. It doesn't mean you hate anybody else. It means that you have leadership. And President Trump has been very clear about this, that puts the interests of American citizens first. In the same way that the British Prime Minister should care about Brits and the French should care about the French, we have an American president who cares primarily about Americans, and that's a very welcome change.
I mean, this is one of those so obviously true. It drives me crazy that people object to it. And it's like, again, is everyone created in the image and likeness of God? Yes. Are you supposed to love everyone? Yes. is there an order of your loves and obligations? Duh. It's like if there isn't, then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I just might happen to be your father, but I have to give this other guy a place to stay. So can you move out of your room? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it is so objectively, obviously true, and the left has been focused on the last 100 years or so, saying, let us deny the most obvious things right in front of our face.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, up the wall.
I love getting Josh going, man. I haven't even got that was the first part. So there was so this sparked a lot of debate, and honestly, I was kind of happy that just the general public and the world was debating Thomistic theology, which I thought was kind of cool. Perks of having a Catholic vice president. Pope Francis sent somewhat of an unprecedented letter to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops on immigration right after that, pretty quickly after. And the line that was in it that a lot of people focused on was, I have followed closely the major crisis that is taking place in the United States with the initiation of a program of mass deportations. The rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly denies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. At the same time, one must recognize the right of a nation to defend itself and keep its community safe from those who have committed violent or serious crimes while in the country or prior to arrival. That said, the act of deporting people who are in many cases have left their own land for reasons of extreme poverty, insecurity, exploitation, persecution, or serious deterioration of the environment damages the dignity of many men and women and of entire families and places them in a state of particular vulnerability and defenselessness. Now, interesting on this, now Pope Leo, because again, popes have Twitter history.
Well, I mean,
if I could add before we get into that, he quote tweeted an article from America Magazine titled Pope Francis's letter, J.D. Vance's Ordo Amoris, and what the gospel asks all of us on immigration.
Okay. Well, I always like to say the first rule of Twitter is retweets do not, imply endorsement.
Well, that was a quote tweet. It's different.
Yeah. Whatever. Reposting.
The point is that doesn't necessarily mean, it's not like he said above it, like, yes, totally got it. J.D. Vance is stupid. Read this article. That's not what he said. He just shared the article. So whatever. But again, this is where Pope Francis, that he wrote this. I mean, let's be honest. This letter was drafted for him at a time when he was very sick. I don't know how much of a critical eye he gave to the text before he allowed it to go out in his name. But it is a terrible and is a poorly articulated argument. Well, the argument, the frustration that this document has is that, we cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. So their point is, we don't like it that you're associating with everyone who broke the law and entered your country illegally with a crime. Like, well, entering our country illegally is a crime. So that's why we would expressly, not tacitly, nailed it. That's why we're saying it's a problem, guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. It drives me absolutely up the wall. How dare you associate it with criminality? Because it's a crime to enter a country illegally.
Right. And I think that the line that actually stuck out from this was that not only did he have this passage that you so eloquently read, thank you, Pogo, but also he specifically went to the Ordo Amoris, which was a direct response just hours after J.D. Vance was expounding on the Ordo Amoris on national news. And the Pope said the true Ordo Amoris that must be promoted, as opposed to J.D. Vance's, is that which we discover by meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan. And this berating governments for having actual policies, like the Trump administration's actual policy of deporting people who are here illegally, of closing the border. Instead of having actual policies, governments need to meditate upon this parable. And then he's saying worrying about, or whoever wrote the letter, worrying about personal, community, or national identity apart from this parable introduces an ideological criterion that distorts social life. And so it just went from this sort of like, let's meditate on the Good Samaritan, to J.D. Vance and the Trump administration are distorting social life. They don't believe in the dignity of the human person. It was a very pointed letter. And I mean, the media loved it. They were like, Pope Francis takes on the Trump administration, which is how they're trying to frame Pope Leo as well.
So yeah, and thank you for that point, because I almost don't even want to go back and split hairs at this point. What's in the past is in the past.
Moving on.
What's more interesting to me is I see attempts from the media to really try to lump in Pope Leo. He's going to be exactly the same as Pope Francis in his approach to the American church, in his approach to the Trump administration. And so I found a clip from an old homily that I think is just worth playing and then meditating upon really quick.
Reading and the gospel make very clear a message which Pope Francis has been hammering home time and again since his very first trip as Pope, when he went to this little community, an island in southern Italy, the town of Lampedusa, where all these immigrants continue to come. It's a huge problem, and it's a problem worldwide, not only in this country. There's got to be a way both to solve the problem, but also to treat people with respect. Every one of us, whether we were born in the United States of America or on the North Pole, we all are given that gift of being created in the image and likeness of God. And the day we forget that is the day we forget who we are. We forget who Christ has called us to be.
So,
sure, I agree with that.
I saw that, and I think that already here, at least what got out from Pope Francis, I don't think it got out from Pope Francis, acknowledging that it is a problem for everyone. And I think already what has been signaled to me, and who knows, could be wrong, but Pope Leo's approach to the American church, and potentially its familiarity with actually being American, knowing a lot of different languages, I think there's a better chance for it to be a proper diplomatic relationship where he says, I have these concerns or these problems. What do you have to say back to that? And then JD Vance, Trump administration can say, listen, we're not trying to violate anyone's human dignity. Mm-hmm. I'm actually a sincere Catholic. We need to protect our nation. It's our duty, moral duty as Americans to protect America. And so I think it signals to me, and I got some other connections here as we go further. I think it could be really positive and a sea change in the relationship between America and the Vatican in a way that really benefits everyone, potentially the whole world.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as we follow the new Holy Father and what comes out, I'm looking forward so much to his homily on Sunday. I love reading the first homilies of popes from history, and of course now right in front of us, to see what he says, how he sets the tone. I would just say to everyone out there, be very diligent about going to his primary words, to actually reading what he said, to testing anything you see coming out on video to see if it's AI generated. I just spent a whole week with my brain in AI, and I think we need to be very cautious about, look at this video about the Pope saying XYZ, and you're like, actually, it's not that. That was fake. But for example, I pulled up the news this morning, and I have this headline from Reuters, and it's regarding the Holy Father's address to the diplomatic corps, which, because Congress is stupid, we don't have an American representing us at this diplomatic corps right now.
Would be nice. But
that's a whole nother topic. But the headline from Reuters is, at this address, Pope Leo urges respect for migrants, challenging Trump views. And of course, the implication is Trump urges disrespect for migrants. He hates migrants. The Pope says everyone has human dignity. Therefore, Leo is challenging Trump. And it's just the stupidest way. If you actually read what he said, if you actually read his words to the core, I mean, this is okay. I gotta just.
It's almost like they could have human dignity and maybe not try to enter our country illegally. I mean, I don't know. Crazy concept.
I get your. So what's funny, what this is actually making me think of is a lot of similar things were done to Pope Francis. If you actually went and read the text from what he was saying, there were times for sure where people would take it out of context, put it into a political narrative, and spin it to their side. Now, I think the issue with that, though, is there were times legitimately where you took Pope Francis at its word. Oh, there's some balloons.
Oh, there are your balloons.
If you went into the text of the Vatican documents or straight up transcripts from what he was saying on planes that were actually legitimately problematic and that worthy of at least, some questioning or
like when he said it was not a Christian thing to do to build a wall.
100%. And that's just a direct. So I think there's two problems here. Sometimes it was done politically, but then there's other times where it was legitimate transcript and people were just freaking out at you if you even were to raise your voice of that doesn't sound right, or there's something wrong there. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious now with Pope Leo, I think being younger, because I do think towards the end, Josh, what you were saying is he was towards the end of his life and he had advisors that ghost wrote for him. No question. I think Tucho, Cardinal Fernandez, wrote a lot of what we ended up seeing, specifically on Fiducia Supplicans, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's important to go directly to the source, read it for yourself.
Yeah.
And then I guess have the courage to have honest conversations in a way that isn't disrespectful. If you look back on lessons of Pope Francis, there's people that you legitimately cannot even talk about Pope Francis to without them just coming from a huge place of pain, rabidly angry, one side or the other. Or then there's the flip side too, that he's a martyr. He never did anything wrong. And so I think there's a degree of honesty in terms of going to the primary source, reading it yourself, and then coming forward humbly of hey, I got some issues with this. Can someone explain this? Would probably be good for everyone going to the next pontificate.
100%. Right. And in his words to the diplomatic corps, he has some lines in there that one could almost say this is in line with the populist movements that we're seeing in Europe and the United States. Because he says, quote, "It is the responsibility of government leaders to work to build harmonious and peaceful civil societies. This can be achieved above all by investing in the family, founded upon the stable union between a man and a woman, quote, a small but genuine society prior to all civil society." Then he goes on to talk about the dignity of every human person, starting with the most frail and vulnerable. Little ordo amoris there, if I may say so myself. Preferential option for the frail and vulnerable. But right, yeah, read the words themselves. Don't let Reuters dictate to you how to interpret them before you've even seen them.
Yeah.
I'll have more about media bias in my Twilight Zone coming up ahead.
Good. But I think besides all that, we're talking about immigration. Obviously, that was probably the most contentious issue between the United States and the Vatican over the past couple of years. But I look a little bit deeper into J.D. Vance as an individual, and we know not as much about Pope Leo right now, but I think there's been some really encouraging signs. I went back to J.D. Vance's conversion story. He wrote a great article about it in The Lamp in 2020. Rose, you might want to drop that in there if people haven't read the full. Highly recommend read the full thing. I totally personally have also read Hillbilly Elegy. I think the seeds for this were in there, but his approach to politics, he actually cites in this article twice Augustine, one from City of God and then one from Confessions. And it's just cool to see such a genuine appreciation for St. Augustine from both men. I think a huge opportunity. But the passage he picked out was on the debauchery of Rome's ruling class. And I honestly just have to read this because it's scary accurate. Okay, so the quote is, "This is our concern, that every man be able to increase his wealth so as to supply his daily prodigalities, thank you. And so that the powerful may subject the weak for their own purposes. Let the poor court the rich for a living, and that under their protection they may enjoy a sluggish tranquility. And let the rich abuse the poor as their dependents to minister to their pride. Let the people applaud not those who protect their interests, but those who provide them with pleasure. Let no severe duty be commanded, no impurity forbidden. Let kings estimate their prosperity not by the righteousness, but by the servility of their subjects. Let the provinces stand loyal to the kings, not as moral guides, but as lords of their possessions and purveyors of their pleasures, not with a hearty reverence, but a crooked and servile fear. Let the laws take cognizance rather of the injury done to another man's property than of that done to one's own person. If a man be a nuisance to his neighbor or injure his property, family, or person, let him be actionable, but in his own affairs, let everyone with impunity do what he will in company and with his own family and with those who willingly join him. Let there be plentiful supply of public prostitutes for everyone who wishes to use them, but specifically for those who are too poor to keep one for their private use. Let there be erected houses of the largest and most ornate description. In these, let there be provided the most sumptuous banquets, where everyone who pleases may, by day or night, play, drink, vomit, dissipate. Let there be everywhere heard the rustling of dancers, the loud, immodest laughter of the theater. Let a succession of the most cruel and the most voluptuous pleasures maintain a perpetual excitement. If such happiness is distasteful to any, let him be branded as a public enemy. And if any attempt to modify or put an end to it, let him be silenced, banished, and put an end to. Let those let these be reckoned the true gods who procure for the people this condition of things and preserve it once possessed. And this is from J.D. Vance. It's the best criticism of our modern age I'd ever read. A society entirely oriented towards consumption and pleasure, spurning duty and virtue. Not long after I first read these words, my friend Orrin Cass published a book arguing that American policymakers have focused far too much on promoting consumption as opposed to productivity or some other measure of well-being. The reaction criticizing Orrin for daring to push policies that might lower consumption almost proved the argument. Yes, I found myself saying Orrin's preferred policies might reduce per capita consumption, but that's precisely the point. Our society is more than the sum of its economic statistics. If people die sooner in the midst of historic levels of consumption, then perhaps our focus on consumption is misguided.
Yeah. I mean, that's Maha, right? That's what's going on.
I almost couldn't believe what I was reading. I like that basically summarizes, I think, the feelings that a lot of American Catholics have been feeling. And you said Maha. I also think part of MAGA is a part of this too. Like in terms of our trade policy, in terms of our economic policy, in terms of policy towards workers, our approach to AI is going to come up here too, right? Like what is true productivity? And if all our jobs go away, is just Wall-E type consumption going to make us a prosperous nation? And there's a spiritual problem going on in the West, I think is what I'm getting at. And what Pope Leo said in his first homily precisely is that there's a form of practical atheism that exists in the West because people are able to just see Jesus as kind of this nice man, this nice figure, but they're so focused on exactly the things that the debauchery of the city of Rome were focused on, right? Just maximizing their pleasures, getting along with their lives, doing this and that, but they haven't faced kind of the spiritual crisis going on. Right. And so what I'm hoping, this might be way too, ambitious, what I'm hoping that they're able to encounter together precisely is how can we as Americans and as the Trump administration focus on this kind of spiritual decay and honestly, obviously physical decay that we're seeing within our citizens, and how can the Vatican aid those kind of efforts in a way that's palatable to the public? Because I think the public understands that there's a problem, but they don't know exactly what the problem is. Right. So I think outside of immigration, this is an important topic for me as an American Catholic to have addressed properly from my priests, but then also my policymakers.
I don't know if there's going to be much of an opportunity, by the way, of Vice President Vance to have an audience with the Pope, given his installation is happening. So the payout here might be a little bit longer down the road.
That's what I'm not saying it's going to happen immediately.
No, I understand, but I think I agree with you that there's going to be a great opportunity because, frankly, J.D. Vance is so quick on his feet, and he's not a typical politician who just belches out talking points, as any of these, ABC, CBS type people that interview him. And he had that viral moment, I'm sorry, I don't really give a damn, Margaret, or whatever it was. So I do think he's somebody who's quick on his feet and he understands the church and her teachings. So I look forward to, again, like I said, it probably won't happen this weekend, but down the road, there's going to be I think a wonderful opportunity for the vice president to try to be an emissary, just like Brian will, to the Pope and explain what is it that, is going on here. I do think Pope Francis it was obvious. He had a very antagonistic relationship with President Trump in both of the terms. I also think that Pope Francis didn't understand America, but I also think to the extent that he did understand America, he just had a very negative view. And I don't think he ever was able to see it outside of that, the prison of his own experience living in Argentina for so many years.
Yeah. And just looking forward, I'm so moved that St. Augustine is such a great influence right now at the very height of American power in the person of J.D. Vance, and that he's such an influence, obviously, on Pope Leo at the head of the church. And you really have, what is the greatest, and of course, Augustine being a man of his time, but also a man for our times. Augustine is writing at the end of the Roman Empire as a civilization is transforming and crumbling. There is unspeakable decadence. There's been the legalization of Christianity has happened over 100 years ago, but there hasn't yet been the cultural transformation to the extent that they can stave off the death of the Roman Empire. And what better prophetic voice for our time. Augustine writes then the city of God and the city of man. And to me, to have J.D. Vance in the halls of power of the city of man. And Pope Leo, at the pinnacle of the one who's supposed to, be leading the world to look at the city of God, to inform how we conduct our city of man, that they're both informed by Augustine. It's just, there's a lot of very hopeful and beautiful spiritual, not coincidences, because they're not coincidences, but I think that we can read the signs of the times and have great hope. I don't think like, oh my gosh, everything's going to be fine now because like St. Augustine is talking to the president. Yeah. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we are in the midst of a civilizational upheaval between AI and the sort of America, the populist rise all over the West and other factors. We're at this time of upheaval, but we've been given the gift of these leaders for a reason. And I can't wait to see that play out.
Even just the fact that he chose the name Leo was, cool. I think, a huge surprise to me. Yeah. And did we talk about the vision from previous Pope Leo?
St. Michael. Yeah, I mentioned that like he was elected on the day that the vision of St. Michael happened. Yeah. That's kind of cool.
But for those, I just want to back because I literally cannot stop thinking about it probably since I saw it. But Pope Leo XIII had a vision while on the altar and passed out. And
on May 8th.
AIDS rushed to him. On May 8th, AIDS rushed to him. And they're like, what'd you see? What was going on? And he said he was terribly frightened because he saw a conversation between God and Satan. And Satan was basically bragging. He's like, if given the opportunity, I could take over the world. Basically, it would be easy. And God was, I think it was God or Jesus. I can't remember what form, but he said, okay, I'll give you 100 years. Do your worst.
Right. And they picked the 20th century.
Yeah. And then they picked, so for 100 years. And so there's a lot of people that speculate that the last 100 years were those 100 years because we get 2 world wars. We have the sexual revolution,
communism,
Catholic monarchies being destroyed, socialism, all these bad things. And so he saw demons rising from hell into the world. And then he saw St. Michael come and smash the demons back into hell. And so from that, he writes the St. Michael prayer and actually makes the original St. Michael prayer a part of the liturgy. So it was said at the end of Mass, which in the Novus Ordo is no longer required. At one point it kind of was, but in the traditional Latin Mass, or the extraordinary form of the Mass, it is still a part of the prayers in an extended way. But that's how you get the St. Michael prayer of today. So crazy. Who knows?
Cool times.
Listen, who knows?
God is not dead, nor does he sleep, as the carol goes.
So I'm excited. I also, I think I was talking a little bit before the show too, of just first impressions of Pope Leo. And I think there was a lot of really comforting things that might seem superficial, but have been comforting to me personally. And I remember right after we had that first reaction video, right, and left on kind of a bummer, and then went and prayed in front of Blessed Sacrament and Adoration. I was thinking more and more on it. And the more that I've seen from him in terms of coming out in the traditional vestments, moving back into the papal apartment, speaking a lot of Latin, these might seem like small things. And I'm not even one to like read into it too much or not, or whatever, but it kind of felt like true humility from someone to enter into the office of the papacy for basically like, I'm going to sacrifice my own preferences to assume a role much larger than myself.
Right.
That's important for the global church. And it feels kind of like I think I just realized I didn't know what kind of bothered me, I think, about Pope Francis in a lot of ways. I just kind of felt generally agitated. Still obviously believe it's the Pope. And I think him making these subtle changes have made me realize how important that was to me. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm just saying it was important to me. And so the diplomatic style, ability to reflect, time away from social media, being intentional and thoughtful in his words, all that paired with the small changes, the coat of arms, even things like that. I'm just like, man, it just makes me appreciate my Catholic faith so much and the global nature of it, right? That I'm not just in my local community. I'm a part of a broader community of faithful within the church. So I'm really encouraged. I have high hopes. That's where I'm at now. I reserve the right to change my opinion.
Yeah.
Who knows? Just being honest.
I mean, if you'll remember that Pope Francis had issued a motu proprio constraining the personal prelatures of the Pope. And there was really only one, Opus Dei. And so what happened within the first week of this new pontificate, Pope Leo meets with the head of Opus Dei. So
that was such a hope. Yeah, that made me very
hopeful
happy.
Sign.
I have many friends who are in Opus Dei, and just that gesture of goodwill was so healing for them after the last 12 years. And Yeah, very hopeful.
Shout out St. Mary of the Angels in Chicago. If anyone gets the chance, it's like the most breathtaking cathedral I've ever seen. And Opus Dei actually took it over to keep it running because it ceased. There's not enough people, and of course now a ton of people have gone back there. But I got so much respect for places that do that,
which probably makes Cardinal Cipich angry. I say probably. I should be fair. It does make him angry.
Definitely.
All right, cool. So 2 other big stories. I want to get to SCOTUS oral arguments here. We have the infamous Birthright citizenship decision. Erica's basically becoming our Supreme Court correspondent at this point. I had you look into it, Erica. What is going on there?
Yeah, so the big headline was Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship, of course, was challenged in the lower courts. And they had 3 separate injunctions that end up being universal from 3 lower courts that the Trump administration saying that, no, you can't end birthright citizenship. So the Trump administration sues, and we get all the way up to the Supreme Court yesterday. So, of course, the sexy headline is, can the children of illegal immigrants be anchor babies and be the citizens here? But the actual fundamental specific question that the court was addressing yesterday is, can federal judges issue these nationwide injunctions halting all the action of the executive branch on a particular question? Yeah. This is obviously going to have a much bigger impact, whatever they decide, because we have, we're over 40 injunctions right now that are universal injunctions.
35 of them from the same 5 districts.
35 from the same 5 districts, which means that it's completely impartial and objective.
Yeah. Not judge shopping at all. No.
Did you see Clarence Thomas was like, "We survived before 19."
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines. So the U.S. Solicitor General John Sauer, he was arguing obviously on behalf of the Trump administration, and he's talking about the citizenship clause in the 14th Amendment. He argues that the original meaning of this clause extended citizenship to the children of former slaves, not to people who are unlawfully or temporarily present in the United States. Now, they had a little pushback from the liberal judges. The court is obviously very divided on this at oral arguments. The Ketanji Brown Jackson characterized this as a catch me if you can regime, were they to end injunctions. I don't know if we want to play that clip there. Rosie pulled up for us.
Yeah.
Youngest justices, newest to the court, talks the most.
And is a Broadway superstar.
Still doesn't know what a woman is.
It's hard to say, though, isn't it?
Because the real concern, I think, is that your argument seems to turn our justice system, in my view at least, into a catch-me-if-you-can kind of regime from the standpoint of the executive, where everybody has to have a lawyer and file a lawsuit in order for the government to stop violating people's rights. Justice Kagan says, let's assume for the purpose of this that you're wrong about the merits, that the government is not allowed to do this under the Constitution, and yet it seems to me that your argument says we get to keep on doing it until everyone who is potentially harmed by it figures out how to file a lawsuit, hire a lawyer, etc. And I don't understand how that is remotely consistent with the rule of law. You know, a system, and I appreciate that you go back to English common law and the Chancery Court, but they had a different system. The fact that courts back in English Chancery couldn't enjoin the king, I think is not analogous or indicative of what courts can do in our system.
Okay, so to back that up a little bit, what she's referring to is that a lot of the Trump administration's arguments why universal injunctions are not constitutional, they're against the order of Article 3.
Certainly dubious.
They're certainly dubious, right? They're a relatively recent practice in the way that they've been used. They have been a monkey on the back of not only the Bush administration and the Trump administrations, but also the Obama administration as well.
And just a top line description, what is a universal injunction?
So a universal injunction is when a lower court, an inferior court to the Supreme Court, rules on a case. So say, for example, one person brings a lawsuit that says, my daughter who was born here, even though both of her parents are illegal, she should be a citizen. The Trump administration says no, and I think this is a violation of the 14th Amendment. It's when that lower court judge, we haven't gotten to SCOTUS yet, says something like, you know what, you're right, and therefore every single state, every single jurisdiction in the United States has to grant citizenship to every single child born to illegal parents. So it becomes not just a remedy for this one person who has a complaint against the legal system, but it becomes a law, as it were, for the whole country, overriding not only the law or the rule that the president permitted, but also the law of Congress that the president was enforcing when he interpreted that law.
Yeah.
So it's a
important context. Whenever we talk about Congress kind of ceding their job to the judiciary, where the judiciary is legislating from the bench, this is basically what we're talking about, right? Like this is a major element of what's been going on in the last 20 years.
Right. I mean, the Congress has the authority to remedy this and say there's no longer, these district courts can no longer do this. And again, it's important to realize you have local, federal district courts, and then you have the larger circuit courts that cover several states. And so again, the Supreme Court has the opportunity to sort of button this up and say maybe nationwide injunctions can only be done by an entire federal district court, like the 5th district court that would cover like 9 states or something like that. But what right now is you could literally have each of the different larger areas are broken up into smaller federal district courts. And sometimes a federal district might only have one judge in that district. So if you go to that court, you're going to get the person, you can kind of guess what they're going to be, which is why during the Biden administration, conservatives, anytime they wanted to have a problem, there's a one district in Texas, you will 100% chance you're going to get a guy who's super conservative. Right. So then you could stop like the water, the EPA was water of the United States stupid ruling and slap it, get a nationwide injunction. Conservatives hate nationwide injunctions, but while they were still a tool, we were going to use them.
Yeah. You might hate foul baiting in the NBA, but people are going to still foul bait if that's going to be the status quo. So, okay. Can I want to separate the conversation for a second. The decision on this isn't necessarily on birthright citizenship.
There's
more
two
just
things going on.
Right. It's
2 questions.
It's about the broader universal injunctions, which the decision on this could be huge because if they stop that or stop a version of it, a lot of President Trump's agenda will be able to be accomplished, what we voted for him to do. But then the second question, of course, is birthright citizenship itself. And President Trump, I mean, I think I saw a note like conservatives have been kind of on the fence about this, but Trump has not been quiet about his thoughts on this. He thinks it's ridiculous. He says we're the only country that does it. So the question of birthright citizenship itself, Erica, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, so we're talking about interpreting an interpretation of the 14th Amendment that would allow for, like I said, if your parents are both illegal, but you are born here, they're not U.S. citizens, but you're born on American soil, you are automatically conferred U.S. citizenship. And that's something that no other country, if you want it, no other country on earth offers this, right? Like you have to have some kind of interest in the country. So I went back to the exact text of the 14th Amendment. I am an originalist. I like to read my primary sources. The exact text is, and Josh, you could probably recite this from memory, right? All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And the second half of that passage is what the U.S. Solicitor General was emphasizing in his argument about this. He's saying,
real quick though, Erica, but
go ahead.
Get into like the arguments for it. Like it's important to understand what is the context for which Congress felt the need to pass the 14th Amendment. It's because we had just got done with the Civil War and we had liberated the slaves. And so the point then is, okay, so are these children of slaves, are they U.S. citizens? Do they have citizenship? And so it's making clear, yes, the slaves and their children are subject to the laws of this country. They are citizens of the United States, so that we can't have any of this monkey business. Like, well, wait a minute now. They just came over on a boat. Like, how are they citizens? That's what it gets to. And then including the subject to the jurisdiction of. So if you have the ambassador of France in the United States and his wife delivers, a baby, is that baby able to claim U.S. citizenship? No, you are subject to the laws of the Republic of France. You don't get citizenship here. So that's why, they may, and it's important to look back at these arguments that were had at the time of the 14th Amendment.
Right. Exactly. And the argument from that you just articulated that the Solicitor General is making before the court is that, of course, a baby born to parents here isn't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. They are subject to the jurisdiction to which their parents are subject, right? And so that's going to be the nationality of their parents. And then if they reach the age of majority, they can apply for citizenship through legal means. Like, we can have a system for that, but that is not something that you have just by virtue of exiting your mother's womb on American soil. This idea started to be pushed. I look back a little bit. It was really under, guess what? It wasn't Wilson. I was thinking Wilson. It was FDR. It was under FDR. They start to intimate that, maybe we should consider this birthright citizenship thing and start to interpret it more broadly. But Josh, do you have a?
Well, I mean, part of it involves this actually a pretty crucial 19th century Supreme Court case. And part of it involves a little bit of, an unproud chapter of an American history where we brought a bunch of Chinese immigrants into the United States to help build the railroads. They came into San Francisco and they built a railroad, and they were treated, inhumanely. Right. There was, persecutions of it. We just thought, oh, well, whatever. They're Chinamen, we weren't as concerned with safety laws and them dying. And it's not something we should be proud of. But the whole point is that this person that was born in the United States, then it was a Chinese person who was born. His parents both had entered into the country to help, I think illegally. And so then he goes, he's not technically a citizen. He goes back to China to visit, and he tries to come back to the United States. And they go, wait a minute, you can't come back here. You're not a citizen. And he's like, dude, I was born here. He wouldn't have said it, dude, in the 19th century. I was born here. What are you talking
Hamilton
about?
action
This is
there,
the only thing I've ever known about my entire life. It does echo the comments that some people are making today. But the point is, what the Trump administration is trying to get at is, think of it this way. If you have a tourist, in London that just flies to the United States, and then she gives birth to a baby, why should that baby have a claim to citizenship in the United States? And we see this. Now China is a lot more prosperous than it was in the 19th century. There are people in China that will fly to the United States to give birth to a kid so that kid can have U.S. citizenship. So when they're trying to apply for colleges or whatever, they have a leg up. So it is, this idea that because of the racial discrimination against Chinese people in the 19th century, which was bad, and the abuses that these people had to endure was bad. But does that mean then forever any person traveling, like just being an international traveler and giving birth, or someone jumping a fence and coming to the United States and giving birth, we just have to give citizenship? We have no ability to say, wait a minute now, that's not what our citizenship should be about.
Right.
Right. we can correct the wrongs that we made in the 19th century without saying this. We have a stupid system where we just say, oh, I guess if you happen to be born within the geographic part, swim to Guam and give birth. Oh, U.S. citizenship. Like, what? No, this is stupid.
Yeah. Right. And I think the point is too, we have a system built to redress wrongs like that for individual case basis. And this was a point that Alito was making as well during the arguments, that we have a system whereby, so say we have another issue with the China men that you were talking about, Josh, where there is an individual who was born here, who's been there their whole life. They go back to visit their parents in the motherland of their parents, and then they're refused entry back in. They have a way to redress the wrong done against them in their particular case. But what the Supreme Court does not have the ability to do is to legislate for all people of all time, for all babies born here to non-citizen parents, that everyone's just coming in and there's nothing else there, because then we have again Article 3 supplanting Article 1 in the Constitution, and it's Congress's job to make broad laws that affect everyone. It is the Supreme Court's job to be the backstop for individual cases, to redress wrongs to individuals who have been denied the benefits of the Constitution and those laws passed by Congress.
There's this other really key moment too. By the way, most people don't even realize this. American Indians living on reservations and their children did not actually become citizens of the United States until Congress passed the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. Yeah. There would have been no need to pass such legislation if the 14th Amendment had extended citizenship to any person that happened to be born on American soil, no matter what the circumstances of their birth, no matter what their parents were. The reason to have to pass this law was because the 14th Amendment was not what these liberals have made it to become in recent generations. So we want the original 14th Amendment that hasn't been bastardized by a bunch of crazy court rulings. If someone just decides to fly from Paris and deliver a baby, no, sorry, your baby's not automatically a citizen. If you hop the fence, run in and go into the hospital, but give birth to a kid on American soil, sorry, your kid is not an American citizen. This birthright citizenship needs to be tightened up.
Can I round it out with one of my favorite JD Vance moments?
Do it.
If you remember the Maggie Brennan interview where she said, "You do know America's a nation of immigrants, right?" He said, "Okay, so therefore we should have the dumbest possible immigration system."
The way she did it too, like,
Margaret, you know we're a nation of immigrants, right?
Know.
Like, frankly,
yeah, he knows. Yeah, Maggie.
Cut through all that. Okay, so next up, our very own multimedia star Erica did the latest deep dive here.
Oh yeah.
The only place to get this is over on the LOOPcast YouTube. So go over and subscribe. We're doing these medium format, video essay style type things. And of course, Erica is a star. So the latest we did is on this provocatively titled piece called "Everyone is Cheating Their Way Through College." And just to give brief background, it profiled a young man, Roy Lee. He was a student at Columbia, and by his own admission, proceeded to use generative artificial intelligence to cheat on nearly every assignment. As a computer science major, he depended on AI for his introductory programming classes. I just dumped the prompt into ChatGPT and hand in whatever it spat out. By his rough math, AI wrote 80% of every essay he turned in. And by the way, I believe he was graduating with an A. So, or at least finishing the semester with an A. And so chatbots like
higher, actually.
Yeah, exactly. ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Claude, Copilot, take your pick. They take notes during class, devise study guides and practice tests, summarize novels, textbooks, brainstorm, outline, draft their essays. STEM students are using AI to automate their research and data analyses and sail through dense coding and debugging assignments. College is just how well I can use ChatGPT at this point. A student in Utah recently captioned in a video of herself copy and pasting a chapter from her genocide and mass atrocity textbook into ChatGPT. Now, the interesting part about this is teachers by their own, some think they can, some think they can't. They really cannot decipher what AI is at this point and what is not. Right. They can tell if they're grading it that this isn't what, say, someone will produce. And they're like, okay, we gotcha. But there's no way to really prove it. And then also the interesting element of it is some teachers are actually starting to use AI chatbots to grade their assignments. Yeah. So now college has just become
it's all fake.
Two sides of people using ChatGPT and never actually engaging with each other. It's like,
well, not only that.
What is education?
Okay. What is education? That's the question.
On accident, you got to the real purpose of all this.
The heart of the question.
But just to think about just as a couch what's going on right now, we're going to have the first graduating class of college kids coming up next year, I think, that will have never known what it's like to write a college essay without AI help, without ChatGPT. Right. And it might actually be here, but the newest version of ChatGPT is so good that you can literally just take a prompt, say, write this like in 11th grade, whatever, in the style of whatever, and it'll just spit out and you can just hand it in and it'll be good. People are getting A's with it. They talk about this entire piece. Interesting element of all this too. So fascinating article, recommend read the whole thing. I even saw that some people are using AI at the primary school level as like alternative instruction. I think you found this, Erica, but yeah, take a look at this.
With its bold approach to education. At Alpha School, students spend 2 hours a day learning with AI teachers. The artificial intelligence adapts its lessons to each student, providing one-on-one personalised education. So what happens after those 2 hours are done? Well, the rest of the day is all about real-world skills, from tying shoelaces to learning how to swim and solving 100-piece puzzles. And the results are surprising. Students are scoring in the top 1 to 2% nationally, with the results so strong the model is expanding to states including Florida, California and New York.
Right. This was fascinating to me, and I feel like we need to do a follow-up deep dive video just on this question of the primary level, because as a homeschooling mom, and other homeschoolers I know will vouch for this, a first, second, third grade student, really, if you have personalized one-on-one education going on, you're talking like 60 to 90 minutes a day of actual formal instruction for these kids. The whole 8-hour day that you need to get all this academic work done is because we put them in these artificial pods of like 20 students, all the same age, with multiple behavioral needs, academic needs, etc.
Government daycare.
Exactly. So in a way, what they're doing with the AI here is what we do with homeschooling, which is we telescope everything. We make it super personalized. I do 40 minutes of kindergarten a day. I do 90 minutes of second grade a day. And then they are just like unstructured play for the rest of the time. But at the same time, what we know about AI and giving over all of the intellectual formation to a student of that age to an AI, when it's actually not what we know about AI, it's what we don't know about AI that should be freaking people out, because we don't always know where it's getting the corrections that it makes to itself. There have been now documented cases of it deceiving, of it using information because it knows it's being, or lying in the sense that when it knows it's being tested, it will answer differently from when it thinks it's just solving a problem. So putting a small child in the hands of that robot, even for just 2 hours a day, I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way.
Sketch.
So
okay, but
anyway,
to get back to the college level.
Okay, back to college.
I'd like to rip off some
Return of Blue Books.
Can I rip off some takes here?
Class.
Do it. Rip it off.
I actually am on the side of the student. I think that I don't think it's cheating. I don't think it's even wrong per se. I think that a true liberal arts education and college as a jobs program are fundamentally incompatible. And I would say, if I had to put a date on it, probably the 60s, somewhere in that, where there was a time where not everyone went to college and they could actually go get good jobs training. And college also wasn't nearly as astronomically expensive, that it was probably better. But from speaking from personal experience, and I think I went to one of the best possible places to receive this kind of Catholic liberal arts education. I still took a lot of frankly nonsense classes where teachers would use stuff like Canva or online as a proxy for actual education. And maybe I need to be more specific when I say education. And I saw a great thread on this, and I think about it a lot. No one asked why this student is, quote, cheating or why he is using AI. And the reality of it is he recognized that Columbia was a good place to meet a spouse and a good place to meet a co-founder.
Right.
And all of the most successful businessmen, innovators, tech people, they all dropped out of college for the most part. And why? Because most of what they actually did in college in terms of assignment, they didn't actually use for their business success. And think about the proposition facing a lot of kids now. You go into outrageous amounts of debt that you can't even repay, and the job market you enter is 10 times more competitive than someone that graduated in the 60s would be for less money. And the stuff you actually did in college didn't even help you on that job performance. And it's kind of masquerading as like, oh, well, you're going to get this liberal arts education. It's going to round you out. The vast majority of what we're calling education is not education at all. It's a certification program. And it's a very inefficient, poor certification program. Like, no one cheats. No Catholic cheats in prayer, or like no artist cheats doing art. Like, you don't cheat at something that you find intrinsically valuable. Like, if I, as a Catholic, would cheat in prayer, no one would do that, right? Because that's not the purpose of prayer. And if you were doing that, it would mean nothing anyway. It meant nothing to you to begin with if you're cheating to do it.
I think that the problem is that in the secular world, and to a large extent, Catholic education adopted this as well. We've been measuring the success of education with material means, right? The success of an education, even if you're like, okay, and I had liberal arts as well, liberal arts core, plus everyone graduating from my program gets a great job. We have this much employment rate 6 months out of college. And I think that what you're getting at, Pogo, is that we have this we've had this sort of like, not dyslexic, schizophrenic approach to education, where it's like, okay, we're going to evaluate your high school education based on how good your SAT scores are, what colleges you get into, the scholarships that you get. It's all this very materialistic measurement of high school education, and then that translates
centralized too.
Yeah, exactly. And then college becomes, well, we're going to evaluate colleges on placement and networking and all of this. And the idea of the liberal arts is, as you say, it's in a separate category from that. It's city of God and city of man. And do I believe there's a way in which they can live together? Yes, of course, because we're physical beings. We have physical needs. We have goals that are material in this world as long as we're here. It's a sacramental faith that we have. But at the same time, in a world where AI is becoming and rapidly becoming so dominant, not only in the white collar jobs, the online jobs that we enjoy, but also in even blue collar jobs going forward. In that world, we have to recover a sense of the purpose of education is wisdom. The purpose of education is the salvation of the soul, really. And only Catholicism and Christendom can provide that reason to be human in a world where it seems like AI can replace everything that's human or be better at everything that's human. So we have to recover a sense of the human soul. And that's where the Catholic Church, and thank God for Pope Leo, he knows what he's up against, I think. That's what we're looking at facing in the first years of his pontificate and going forward. Watch the video. And we need like 60 follow-up videos.
but think about, I was going into the epistemology of education, like Plato's definition of education. Okay, so just a brief overline. Emphasize the importance of character education, fostering moral principles and virtue within individuals.
Right, it's virtue.
Right?
Moral instruction. Yeah.
We don't even pretend to talk about that anymore. Like, and think about what the modern, like, I think of it as a Frankenstein, like the average college education. Everyone says what they do there is BS. It's like extended adolescence and an alcoholic and hedonistic opportunity for kids to just act like idiots for 4 years and say that's
it's summer camp with drugs.
Right, exactly.
For large people.
And no one even thinks what they're doing in there is worth it. And they're saddled with $60,000 of debt that it's impossible for them to pay off. Like, it'd be one thing if it was kind of a cheap proposition. It's like, go party for 4 years. It's like $1,000 or whatever. But like, there was a time where not everyone went to college, and it was understood that college is for certain people and that this was the goal of college. You could not have to mortgage your entire life away and get a good job in the country. Even think like back to ancient times, right? Like when there were only certain people that went to college, they received this good education, like Plato or Aristotle would consider you form yourself in this way. Right.
All the colleges are to form their seminaries originally. That was for the priestly class and for the governing class. Harvard and Yale and they were all founded to form ministers in the faith and judges and politicians to run the country. Right? It wasn't for everyone.
And not only this, like, okay, so all of my best classes were small classes that were Socratic style, because what's the purpose of Socratic style? It's to develop people into critical thinkers, to question everything, to develop healthy skepticism, to eventually reach the truth. But think about, like, I'm not even letting teachers off the hook here. In a lot of ways, there's good teachers, but they're in a bad system. But there's a lot of bad teachers in the system too. The role of the teacher, according to Plato, teachers are seen as guides and role models responsible for nurturing both the minds and characters of their students. Would you really, attribute that to the average college professor at University of Michigan or whatever? Like, that's not even what they're told to do.
They're told to be the experts, right? They're told to be the experts who download their information, kids spit it back at them. Which is why now AI can replace all the professors, because we've reduced the role of the teacher to the expert class. Here's this, we download that. Well, guess what can download a lot better than a teacher? AI. Exactly. Hence the little like second graders with their 2-hour AI thing. Like it's absolutely because we reduced human cognition to computation. We reduced teachers to experts, and we reduced students to becoming like having lucrative jobs. And that goes way back. That is so beyond the 60s. Like, that is back to the Enlightenment. In the video I mentioned, I blame Descartes. I can also bring Occam in there. I mean, this is like, you totally got me started. I'm going to nerd out now. But it's a deep-seated problem.
I think that AI will probably destroy the modern university as we see it. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's completely
I'm here for it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's not good for anyone. The only people it's good for, I guess, are people that get fat checks at universities.
Well, it's only good for Elon Musk and Sam Altman and the AI overlords who are going to...
They did all their stuff without university education. I mean, I think he dropped out.
Which is why destroying it's good. They love it. This is good.
They love it, but like all those people are going to rise regardless of it, especially with the democratization of information through the internet. Like, and even before, you could find a lot of this in books, but like if you wanted to be successful in business, you do not need colleges. And it's
so many of these courses are available for free online. You can learn so much. It's incredible.
Right. But everyone does their learning now properly understood on the internet, like YouTube. You can learn how to do anything on YouTube now. No one's learning really in the modern university environment They're checking off
very few
BS boxes that I would argue are basically inhumane at this point. Like I talk to people who's like, I never went to class in college. I sat in a seminar one time and then I knew how they were going to grade stuff. I went home. I studied the textbook they wanted me to study. I spit it back out. I get my degree. Yay. Now I can go off and start my career. So I would argue that's almost borderline inhumane or not worthy of like the creative or intellectual talents of most students.
Right.
I'm just glad that most of the Newman Guide schools have a very different approach and understand the classical understanding of education to be, as we said, moral formation.
Yes.
Right.
You know, like you understand, you learn of these great texts so that you are liberal in the proper understanding, not the political term, that you are liberated from just the exact moment and circumstance that you happen to be in. You've studied the great minds of history. You have a better understanding of, you know, the world, where the world's been, where the world might be going.
Yeah, 100%.
Hilarious. Someone's like, my son got through engineering school by watching MIT's classes on YouTube. Can you think about how much of a betrayal that is? You spend all this money and time to go to an engineering school, like to mortgage your future, like in a lot of ways, hopefully you make that back, but maybe you don't. And you go on YouTube to listen to another professor's teaching to get you through what you're paying for. Right? Like it's almost, maybe I'm realizing how mad this is making, because I don't think we're even getting people that are better morally formed,
Tom's
better
writing
citizens.
those checks to pay for the loans.
Yes, I am actually. I'm literally, we have to make big sacrifices to try to pay off loans.
I get it, brother.
And something I see as valuable, but I just think most people, what they received by their own admission isn't valuable. So why should we have to subject, you know, America's next generation to basically indentured servitude with less opportunities than there were before? It's insane to me. So I think people are like, oh my gosh, the focus on the kids cheating. I think it's the wrong focus. I think AI is just exposing that the system is so rotten and untenable right now. There's no way forward. And I think it's a really welcome and necessary explosion. Like it's just so, even think about the number of universities there are right now in the country.
Oh my gosh.
It is outrageous to me how many universities there actually are right now.
Yeah. Well, and that's going to change because we are facing the demographic cliff, right? Like the incoming freshman class is smaller than the one before it, just by virtue of we stopped making babies, right? So all that number is going to shrink drastically, not only in the face of AI, but also in the face of the fact that we stopped reproducing. So there is a huge change and fall off coming for the smaller liberal arts schools. And I think that this is going to accelerate.
Go bankrupt every year.
Yeah. Yeah, they close.
I think because a lot of them are.
Get ready, guys. Massive. So campfires and blue books, and then YouTube videos to learn how to be a video editor so you can spread this great message.
I mean, you literally can, like all of this, you literally can, but because that's all that we just talked about, the college element. We're not actually talking about the cognitive effects this is having on a generation of kids now that are total guinea pigs. Like think about the high school kids that have never written an essay.
Oh man, or read a book.
But no one, again, you get to the point of why, like no one has explained to them or at least made the proposition clear, which I think is the role of the instructor, or should be, why what they are doing is necessary and good for liberal, as Josh understood, understanding where they fit in the world. Are we getting closer to truth? Are we wrestling with big ideas? Do we understand our heritage and what came before us? And to your point, Josh, when you remove, I think it was Gerard had a good quote on this, about like the original betrayal was removing God, because of course man's end is to understand where they're going and who created them, and the bigger metaphysical questions that have been largely cut out of almost every level of education in America. So it's no wonder that like this is all rot. It's like you can't even wrestle philosophically with what's going on. Then what are we doing here?
What are we
Crazy.
doing?
That's why I do think people keep saying, oh, trade school. I think trade school is going to explode very quickly here. For two reasons, because AI is going to destroy a lot of white collar jobs, or at least adjust them. And AI still can't fix your plumbing or your
yet
HVAC. Not yet, but
did you read Project 2027 yet? Oh my
2027. What are you talking about?
Okay. Monday I'm coming hard with Project 2027.
All right.
Little teaser. Okay, but we are
all right. Josh has been excited to say it's Twilight Zone, so we gotta hit him with it. What you got, Josh?
Bring it.
Well, I got it in the on the Slack loopcast thing for a couple of different images. If you could put it up there.
Is it the Post article?
Yeah, just an image. These are all images. So start with the Washington Post one. You know, again, let's just where is this
one?
No, what are you doing, bro?
This is your link, brother. Which one?
Oh man. There we go.
Bro, just I don't know why this is hard.
What?
Josh, you didn't put it in the right place. Are you talking about this?
I love you, brother.
This one's not on me, Josh. I'm in the Twilight Zone.
I'm not telling you to go to the Twilight Zone. I'm telling you, go to the LOOPcast channel, bro.
It's almost like there's a document we prepare for this show that would be.
I know, but I wanted to be able to make it easier for you to share the images. So
this isn't easier, but at all, actually. I don't even know if I can do this.
All right, I got it for you.
Where is it?
It's in our private chat that no one else can see on Restream.
Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, this would be better.
There we go. Well, I mean, it's
all right. Here we go.
Hey, we're back.
I want to talk about media coverage of all things Catholic. There's so few newspapers that have religious reporters anymore, and so the Washington Post was doing a little coverage of Pope Leo, and in the Washington Post article says, "Hallelujah," he intoned reverently in Latin.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, Latin did take that word, but it's originally from the Hebrew. So, just in case people don't, but, you think to yourself, I mean, it's not the craziest mistake. It's just kind of, we giggle about it. We're Catholic. We know our faith. And like,
They
okay,
spells it wrong, though. That's not even how we spell
the real banger comes from 2005. Are you guys ready for this?
I don't know.
The New York Times, the paper of record, right? The Gray Lady herself, covering the death of Pope John Paul II. And in talking about this extraordinary papacy, where's the other image? Are we ready? Right next to the other one I had.
I got it now. Okay, give me a second.
Oh, I remember this.
Let's see. Oh my gosh.
The New York Times said a public end for an extraordinary papacy. April 4, 2005, tucked underneath his left arm was the silver staff called the crow's ear. Not crozier. They literally typed up the word crow's
Crows don't even have ears.
A crow, a bird, a black bird, crow's ear. Really, people?
Dude, fair mistake.
This is the first sentence of an obituary for the New York Times. Never apparently offered any correction on this. This is lovely. So just in case anyone we got a photo here of what a crow looks like and a photo of Pope John Paul holding his crozier. So just a little different, folks.
Do that. Well, see, and for me, it's like,
know the difference. What is a crow's ear and what is a crozier?
To me, it's the people who see this and they laugh at it and they're like, oh, haha, they did hallelujahs in Latin. But then they go on to cite the Washington Post as an authority on everything else. And you're like, okay, if they're getting it wrong, like this world's dominant religion, none of their copy editors caught this. What else are they getting wrong? Like about other religions that I'm ignorant of. And we just take their word for it as like, oh, the paper of record, the New York Times. I'm like, no, I stopped trusting just about everything. I do fact checks on the New York Times.
What else are they missing? The fact that the president had dementia for 4 years during the coverage?
Oh, right. Well, that was because the White House lied to them.
They lied.
That was not their fault. Right. It was not their fault. No,
my bad.
In fact, they were pushing that hard. And
I just want to also say, just as we were talking here, the wonderful Archbishop of Oakland, Salvatore Cordileone, just tweeted out, America should have an ambassador to the Vatican at the installation of Pope Leo. Please confirm Brian Birch.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
It just makes sense.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
This is a bipartisan issue.
So there's no way it can happen up until that point now?
They want to recess already. I mean,
they left. They all flew home to go fishing or something.
How does that work? Like, were they
Friday? I work on Fridays.
They were done Wednesday afternoon.
Oh my God. I can't.
Wait, so Josh, how did that happen mechanically? They all just got together and one of them was like, yeah, I'm going to block it. I'm not going to.
Well, I mean, what happened was the good senator from the state of Missouri, Eric Schmidt, asked by unanimous consensus, hey, look, they're going to have the installation of the Pope. Would you just all agree right now, unanimous consent, just let this nomination go forward, let him be confirmed? And the Democrats said, nope. Okay. What, really?
Yeah. So what the Republicans, though, could have done is they could have said, we're going to stay and work to the weekend, and we're going to hold.
Just
we're going to
Friday they could have literally got it done today,
like,
but
you can still get a flight home on Friday night, guys. But they're like, oh, you're right. Gosh, I guess the work week's up. I put in my 20 hours and couldn't possibly make this happen.
I mean,
Tinfoil Tom always talks about the jet fumes.
That's what I would say. The jet fumes. Yeah. I mean, I do think Senate Majority Leader John Thune could do more on this. It would be nice. It would be nice to see.
It's embarrassing that we don't have an ambassador there.
It would have said more, as I said before. It would say a lot about the importance of diplomatic relationship between the United States and the Holy See. If this could have been done, already, it would have been nice.
Sure would have been. Yeah. Erica, what do you got?
Well, since we're on the education kick today, I'll just keep going. This went viral this week. The Palo Alto Unified School District voted to remove honors biology as an option for the smart kids after already having removed honors English, because we don't want any advanced readers to get to talk to other advanced readers. And that would be just, too
Wait,
much.
So just to clarify, it's not removing biology as a subject. It's just moving the honors version of it.
Right. It's what they call, this is the practice of de-laning. So when I was in high school, at my tiny little school, I had not even 200 kids in my graduating class, but we had different options for students of different capabilities and interests and what have you. So we had English 2, which was for kids who needed a little help learning how to write a paragraph and more. Then we had English, which was for kids who were, kind of middle of the road, the bell curve. So most kids were in that class. And then we had honors English for kids who...
Erica was the instructor.
No, Josh, I was not, but I wanted to be because I have control issues. But anyway, so that's what they call now laning. And it is a matter of equity So basically, Palo Alto removes honors biology, honors English classes from the public high schools. The losers, really, of course, are the kids. As always. And Silicon Valley Congressman Ro Khanna came out really strong this week against this. And he's like, this is an assault on excellence. I took many honors classes and all that. Well, it turns out that this is not just happening to the different classes. We also have from a teacher in the same district. She has refused. Palo Alto teachers are also refusing to write letters of recommendation for competitive summer programs in the interests of fairness. This is an actual note that we have a screenshot of from a parent of their child asked for a letter of recommendation to a science summer camp at NASA or something, and they needed a letter of recommendation. The teacher then sent this letter to the entire class. It says, "Dear chemists, you may be looking into summer programs, camps, or internships, and they may ask you for a letter of recommendation from a science teacher, which may mean that you are getting ready to ask me to write one for you. If that's the case, please read this first. You should know," that's after a lot of different things. "You should know, ... I have ethical concerns regarding writing letters for expensive summer camps, such as Cosmos, to name just one. I am sure they're delightful and that you would learn a lot. It's just that due to their cost, they are not accessible to everyone. In some cases, they will accept your application without a letter, but if not, know that the letter I will write will look like this. Student has been in my honors chemistry class and earned a blank for the first semester." And she goes on again to repeat, it's too expensive, they're too expensive, blah, blah, blah. This sort of deplaning and leveling of all things, honestly,
in the classroom.
Yeah, all the sameness, the equity. Talk about crushing students, forbidding them to find their spark. Look, some kids have more money than others. Some kids can afford these fancy summer camps. What are you going to do? Say that they can't take advantage of the fact that their parents are wealthy? I don't know. It's ridiculous. But anyway, that's what's going on in Palo Alto. Pull your kids out of school. No more honors
Palo
biology.
Alto is Silicon Valley. It's it's not too far from Apple and all these big.
There's a lot of summer camps available there, but not for students in that district because they're too expensive. And it's a matter of ethical concerns.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I have so many thoughts, dude.
I know you do.
We got to burn the whole thing down. I don't know what to say. Yeah. This is so crazy. What are we even doing here?
Pull your kids out. Found your own schools. burn it down at this point.
Crazy. All right, I'll bring us up on a happy note.
Yeah.
So I personally, I'm a big fan of Theo Von. I think his podcast is hilarious. I've seen him live. He's a good comedian, and I like was following the Middle East stuff, and I look up and
off Air Force.
Here's a news anchor, and all of a sudden, I'm like, Theo Von is in Qatar.
Visiting the troops there.
The military base.
How the heck did Theo Von end up in Qatar?
Probably USO, right?
It was USO. Yeah, I found out he's done 5 USO tours, I think, which is cool.
No way.
And
that's really cool.
He opened up for Trump in Qatar, and I think he's like, they said, "Do you want to go to the Middle East?" He's like, "Oh, what do you mean, Kentucky?" Like, no, Qatar. Like, man of the people. I can't believe where this guy ends up. I just see him everywhere.
He's so funny.
I know. He's such a funny looking dude too. Like that I'll definitely add it to. It's like, what? Theo Von is a guitar right now?
Yeah, there was a picture of him sitting at the table with a couple of the Trump children, and the Trump children have this like perfect posture. And he's sitting there, and he like tweeted out the picture. He's like, "How do you all have such good posture? I look like a raccoon that just crawled out of a garbage can." And I was like, I just love this
guy. In that picture too, he looked like the stepson of Ivanka and Kushner. Like they're at a table in Miami, and there's Theo Von like in a little button down. And then it was hilarious too. There was a waiter in the background with just a ton of lemons for some reason. So obviously Secret Service, like not fooling anyone, just right there, like clearly gun behind the lemons. Awesome. Yeah. Wow. What a guy, Theo. So, oh yeah, what was the last? Oh, Senator Kenny. Senator Kenny got asked about Qatar because they're all being asked about Trump in the Middle East, what's going on. And I think he said, "I trust Qatar as much as
a restroom."
Yeah.
A rest stop bathroom.
I want to be friendly. Not sure they're going to be friendly back.
Oh my gosh, a rest stop restroom. That was a Mount Rushmore of Senator Kennedy.
Oh my gosh, someone needs to put together just a
rest stop bathroom.
Rest stop bathroom. Dude, I want to be friendly. I don't know if they're.
I want age limits for everyone except for him. Let him go as long as he wants. I need the content. It's so good. All right, fun episode, y'all. Good week. If you want to check out the YouTube channel, go check out Erica's deep dive on the subject. Really good. Go ahead and you can email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. If you want to get in touch, got any questions for us, pray for us. And before you pray, leave us a review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those help out a lot. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us. See you guys in the next one. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you locked and loaded.